and final reflection for my CFE at St. George's. Um, so this reflection is going to be about the single gender, which is actually kind of the most interesting, probably reflection. So I was saving it for last. So as you know, St. George's is a single gender school, all boys actually. So in the current political climate, there's kind of issues. Well, I mean, gender is a big issue right now in the kind of political menagerie, or however you want to say it. So, where people go as far to say is, gender doesn't exist or whatever, or your biological sex exists, but your gender is something that is fluid or whatever. So, to have a school like St. George's where they exclude admissions based on gender is a really interesting institution to have in 2023. And there's still lots of single gendered schools in Vancouver. I know there's Crofton House and York House, which are girls' schools, and also Vancouver College, which is an all boys school. So these institutions still exist. However, uh, it will be interesting to see if they come under fire because of the kind of current political climate that we find ourselves in. This issue did come up several times, talking with the staff as well as assemblies. So I'll go chronologically. So when I was at the junior school, I was talking to one of the associate faculty, a woman, and she was saying, she had her reservations before coming to St. George's about it being an all boys junior school, and she seemed to be quite a progressive young lady, so she had reservations and a few qualms, but she says she now sees the benefits, the positive in it. She says that the boys without any girls there can kind of really express themselves without uh, fear. I don't know if fear is the right word, or concern of judgment from the other sex, or the female sex in this case. And I think that's true. I think boys might be more willing to do activities that might be considered like nerdy or like uncool. So at the junior school, for instance, chess, they're going through a chess mania right now. Every student is a chess fanatic. And if there were girls around, maybe maybe some kids would be a bit embarrassed to play chess because it's considered, uncool or nerdy. Uh, and they would just be more interested in tailoring their interests, or uh, their yeah, their interests or their hobbies towards impressing the opposite sex. And I think that's true. I think, social pressures, especially at that age where they're just, I'm talking more the grade six, seven, eight, social pressures in that age where they're starting to go through puberty. These social pressures from the opposite sex do play a massive influence at that age, or I can say so speaking personally. So she said that this environment is actually great for young boys because they don't have to worry about those social pressures. They can kind of be themselves and pursue their genuine interests without fear of ridicule, if you want to put it like that. So that was the first time I spoke about the single gender issue, if we want to call it, with that associate faculty. So that was interesting to hear her take. I myself personally have always seen the value in single gendered schools because I went to one when I was 13 and I really liked it. I thought, the masculine energy that you can harness in a single gendered school is actually really good. It's actually very productive. You can actually achieve a lot with this kind of masculine energy. Now, there's a dark side to that as well, but there's a good and a bad. It's not just one. Anyways, the next example was now we're in the senior school and they were having an assembly, um, and they were saying goodbye to one of the faculty. She was retiring, and she had been there for something like 34 years, really, really long time. And she was they gave a lot of speeches about her, kind of, and the impression I got is this is like a very strong personality. She's someone who's very outspoken. And then when it came turn for her to speak, kind of give her farewell speech, she said, "Oh, like, this is such a great school, and I hope one day it will be open to girls as well." And I was a bit taken aback by that. I didn't know this dialogue was actually happening. So I didn't know that it was on anybody's radar that St. George's would eventually let in girls. And so I asked around the faculty a bit, and they said, no, she was a strong advocate for her, and she is this kind of strong personality. However, nobody else is really talking about this seriously. It was kind of a dream for her or something that she had advocated for, but nobody else on the faculty is. It's not even really a dialogue that's happening at the upper levels. So St. George's, from what I gathered, when I took the pulse of the attitudes of the faculty and the students, will not be accepting girls anytime soon. So that was also interesting to kind of hear that, because I was like, oh, maybe this is something that's being talked about, but in the end, I don't think it is. And then last or not lastly, we have two more kind of scenarios. We were kind of talking about this during the advisory group, and one of the staff said to me, like, "Oh, if she was a young gay man, we're going into Pride Month. There's no other school that she'd rather be than at St. George's." And I thought that was interesting. And then, lo and behold, the next week was June, or whatever, and so they had their Pride assembly, and there are several openly gay students at St. George's, and they seem to. I saw one of them in the gym, and they seem really accepted. So I agree with her. I think, like, in a boys' school, it could be very easy to, if not actively addressed, to slip into things like homophobia or like overly masculine or overly macho attitudes. But I think they've done a really good job at St. George's to avoid those kinds of that kind of thinking. Uh, Especially if you have a school with a Christian background, it gets very complicated very quickly what exactly the school's attitude towards pride is, or towards the gay community. That's not the case in St. George's. They don't have any religious affiliations, and they are extremely open to the gay community. So yeah, that's interesting. I guess the one thing that I would wonder about is if you had a trans student, so a boy that wanted to transition to a girl, would she still be welcome at the school, considering it's an all boys school and now she identifies as female? So I think there's more problems and issues to overcome in terms of policy for St. George's, but I do think they do a fantastic job at being inclusive and diverse, and I think all the boys really do are very welcoming, even though you do have in any environment where it's all boys, you are going to have this kind of masculine macho energy, and I don't always think that's a bad thing. As long as it doesn't turn toxic, I think it can be really good for harnessing boys' true potential, especially on the sports field, where I was involved in the St. George's rugby team, and now they are provincial champions. So congratulations, that's fantastic. So yeah, and yeah, the Pride Assembly, and yeah, the very good counseling staff there for kids who feel like they might want to come out. So yeah, that was kind of my take on the single gender issue, if you want to call it that. I think it was very interesting to be there where when I was there with the kind of Pride month starting out, which was yeah, yeah. So that's my final reflection, and thank you for listening.